Good. So Dr. Nurul, yeah, quite a lot of you have said yes. That's good. So what I'll be trying to do today will be to share with you what's new on this year's release of the journal citation reports. But of course, I'll also be covering some of the basics of what essentially is the journal citation reports and what are some of the metrics that you can use to evaluate the journals before you submit your manuscript to them. Okay, so I have the sharing capabilities. Give me a second. Let me just share my slide. Okay, so can I confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rhoda. All right, so for today's topic, I'll be covering strategic publishing for research impact, specifically identifying the journals to publish in based on the journal citation reports. Now, the latest release of the journal citation reports is this year in 2022 in June, right? So this journal citation reports is published on an annual basis, and it is the only source for you to look at when you want to evaluate journals to publish in. So many of you might be familiar with the journal impact factor. So the journal citation reports is actually the home of the journal impact factor. Now, before we dive into today's main topic, I just wanted to share some statistics with all of you, just to give you an idea of the vastness as well as the scale of scholarly publishing landscape today. So on an annual basis, we're seeing almost 3 million papers published annually. And these 3 million papers actually go into almost 42,500 scholarly journals. And on top of that, we have almost close to 15,000 open access journals currently in the scholarly publishing landscape. Now, if you're not familiar with the open access journals, just a quick overview or explanation of what it is. These open access journals are journals that do not require a subscription. That means it's free for you to read, it's free for you to access. But in order to be able to sustain its growth, many of these open access journals do collect article processing charges from authors. So that means as a researcher, as an author that wants to publish a paper, if you publish a paper in an open access journal, your article is free for everyone to read. However, you as an author would have to pay a certain article processing charge, a fee. Sometimes it can range from $100 to $3,000 per article, depending on the journal that you are going to publish in. Now, because of the lucrative nature of being able to collect something called an article processing charge, together with the need of researchers to publish, a lot of these journals become a little bit unethical. So there is a more and more increase in the number of predatory journals out there. And what defines a predatory journal is not exactly really clear. So a predatory journal, in simple terms, would be a journal that does not consider the ethical nature of scientific research. Meaning, when they receive an article from you, they do not put it through the process of peer review. Okay. All research has to be peer reviewed in order to be able to verify the methodologies used, the validity of the findings, and so on. So peer review process is a very important part of validating scientific research. If the journal does not go through that process, it is not taking this seriously. Okay, so predatory journals tend to not have that peer review process, and they will tell you, oh, if you send in your manuscript, we will promise to publish it within 1 week, right? So, and promises like this that seem too good to be true is some kind of warning for you to make sure that you are taking a closer look to check whether this journal is truly a reliable journal or not. Okay. So how would you screen for predatory journals? This is just a simple checklist that I have retrieved from this website, thinkchecksubmit.org. It gives you a basic list of questions that you should be starting to ask yourself before you even send your manuscript to that journal that you're looking at. Okay. Now, the first question would be, do you or your peers know about this journal? Okay, meaning, have you all heard about this? It sounds very straightforward, okay, but sometimes some early career researchers think that all journals out there, as long as they have published many articles, it means that they are trusted. Not necessarily so. So do check around, ask your seniors, ask your professors. Secondly, can you easily identify and contact the publisher? Now, the publisher's contact details or address has to be clearly listed on their website. If it is a print journal, it should also be clearly listed on the printed copy of the journal. And always try to make sure that you are able to verify the contact details, that they are real. Okay. Then number 3, is the journal clear about the type of peer review it uses? Earlier on, I mentioned that peer review is a must. Okay, so make sure that the journal has clearly listed the type of peer review it uses. So is it single blind, double blind, or is it an open peer review? Okay, if you have not published a paper yet, you might not have gone through this peer review process, and you might be asking me, what is this single blind, double blind, or open peer review? So single blind peer reviews would mean that usually the authors' names will not be revealed. So they will not know who is the author, or you will not know who is the peer reviewer. Okay, either one. Double blind would mean that neither the peer reviewer nor the author will know each other. All right. Then open peer review would mean that both parties know who each other are. That means it's purely open, and it's open for everybody to see who is the peer reviewer and who is the author. Right? There are plus and positives and negatives to each of these peer review types. Okay, but we are starting to see more and more open peer review happening because there has been some argument that there is a need to be more open in research, as well as being able to look at the trustworthiness of peer review. Then articles indexed in services that you use. This is a very straightforward sentence, but many people would think, oh, I can find it on Google. So does that mean that it is trusted? Right? So when I talk about services that you use, I would be looking at specific databases, perhaps Web of Science, or even journal citation reports, or even those specialized databases, for example, like InSpec. Okay, so make sure that you are able to identify these articles within some of these services before you submit your own manuscript. And is it clear what fees will be charged? Now, fees, I mentioned about article processing charges. That means these are fees that you as an author will have to submit to the journal. Sometimes there are additional fees involved if you are including things like colored pictures. So I think this is specific to like medicines, medical research area. So perhaps they might want to collect color processing charges and so on. So make sure that they are clear on what are the fees that they want to collect and when they will be collecting it from you. Is it upon publishing your paper or before you publish your paper? Okay. Then do you recognize the editorial board members? Okay, this is something that I think many researchers don't really go and look at. Okay, so you look at the editorial board members. A lot of journals now, they have editorial board members as well as advisory board members. And sometimes in this advisory board members list, you see a lot of very high profile names. There could even be some Nobel Prize winners as well, Nobel laureates. But what I want you to pay more attention to is the editorial board members, meaning who is the editor-in-chief, who is the journal manager, and all the other editorial team. The journal, if they are established and trustworthy, they would list down all the affiliations of the editorial team. This is so that you yourself as an author is able to go and verify and check whether these editorial members are real. Okay, so you can do some kind of Sherlock Holmes by yourself, look at the editorial board member's name, Professor so-and-so, affiliated to this university. And then you go to the university's website, check whether that professor really exists in that university. That is already one way of verification. Then, is the publisher a member of a recognized industry initiative? For example, the Committee on Publication Ethics Code. Or is it, if it's an open access journal, is it listed in the Directory of Open Access Journals, DOAJ? So these websites, if you go into Google for these committees and this Directory of Open Access Journals, they have a proper website. So within those websites, you are able to check whether those publishers are members of these committees. A lot of the established publishers, for example, like Wiley, Springer, Nature, those are established publishers, and they do belong to that committee of publication ethics. Okay. So that was the quick list of a quick checklist that you can utilize to make sure that you are choosing reliable journals. Okay, but if you do not have time to really go and verify all these details, one option is to actually look at an established database, for example, Web of Science. Now, the Web of Science heart is made up of the Web of Science core collection. Okay, so the Web of Science core collection is a curated set of journals based on 24 quality criteria and 4 impact criteria. So not all journals get to be indexed in the Web of Science. So these journals, these 21,000 journals in the core collection would have met our selection criteria before they are indexed in the collection itself. Now, I want to spend some time to explain these different indexes within the core collection, because many researchers tend to be a bit confused as to what is each of these indexes. So the Web of Science core collection is made up of journals, conferences, and books. In terms of the journals, we have 4 indexes: the Science Citation Index Expanded, the Social Science Citation Index, Arts and Humanities Citation Index, Emerging Sources Citation Index. So these 4 make up the journal indexes. Then we have the conference proceedings and the books. One thing to take note of is that for the journal citation reports, it covers these 4 indexes. However, not all 4 indexes journals have a journal impact factor. Only the Science and Social Science Citation Index journals have a journal impact factor. Okay. So how do we categorize the journals into these individual indexes? Okay, this picture would explain the process. So any journal that wants to be indexed in the Web of Science core collection has to go through an evaluation process. If they meet our 24 quality criteria, they will be indexed in the Emerging Sources Citation Index. So the Emerging Sources Citation Index will cover journals that have met our 24 quality criteria, and they cover multiple disciplines. If these journals meet an additional 4 more impact criteria, they will be indexed into our flagship specialized collections, which is the Science Citation Index Expanded, Social Science, and Arts and Humanities Citation Index. Right? So why did I mention that it is important to refer to the Web of Science or even the journal citation reports to identify journals to publish in? The reason is because if you remember the checklist that I shared with you a few slides ago, many of those questions or criteria have already been factored into the selection process of the Web of Science. Things like verifying the presence of peer review, verifying the presence of ethics statements, editorial affiliations, author affiliations, editorial board compositions, the actual peer review process, whether it is evident, and whether it adheres to community standards. So many of the items on the previous checklist is already part of the selection criteria for journals in the Web of Science. So when you're looking at the Web of Science journals, you can be rest assured that these journals have already met all the quality standards and are reliable to publish in. Okay. Now, some of you are early career researchers on the call. Some of you are experienced researchers who have already published multiple papers before. So for today, I'm going to share with you some additional strategies that you can utilize to select journals to publish in. The first one is for early career researchers who have never actually published before. So it's a bit like swimming, learning how to swim. If you have never swam before and you're just starting out, most of the time you don't start with the deepest end of the pool. You would start with somewhere a pool mid-level, somewhere you can stand up, something safer, right? But also trusted. So one such example would be to look for government accredited journals. And what are these? These could be journals found in your local or regional citation indexes. It could be, I think for Malaysia, you have My Cite. Okay, so something recognized by your local ministry. Then if you want international recognition, meaning you want to be able to spread your research across the globe, okay, then the next strategy would be then to identify journals that are indexed in the Web of Science. Because the Web of Science database is utilized by international researchers around the world. Then if you want to go one step further, sometimes if you are in faculty, if you're teaching, it is very important in terms of your performance evaluation to be able to publish in Quartile 1 journals in Web of Science, for example. So what is this Quartile 1 that I'm talking about? These are journals that have high rank and prestige. So to identify these high-ranking journals, you would utilize the journal citation reports to identify the journal impact factor, as well as the quartiles of those journals. Okay? But apart from just selecting journals that have high impact factor, this strategy has to be done in collaboration with identifying a suitable research topic. Because when you identify high quality journals, these journals are receiving tons and tons of manuscripts every single day. The exposure to manuscripts is crazy. So in order for you to stand out in terms of your publication, to make sure that you have a better chance of being accepted, your research topic has also got to be attractive. So how would you identify an attractive research topic? Number one, make sure your research topic is novel. That means it is not something that 101 different researchers have done before. If you're doing a topic that is already very established, say for example, cancer research, okay, make sure the technology or the application is something that is brand new, okay, or it is addressing a gap that is in the current research. So that topic alone is meant for a different session, okay? But I do run some webinars on how you can use the Web of Science to identify research gaps or emerging trends in research. And that will definitely help you in identifying the right topic to attract these high impact journals. Now, the last two strategies would be something that's not really considered by a lot of researchers when they choose journals. But since you have the access to the journal citation reports, I think it is a very important thing to consider. Number one, aim for journals that get cited quickly. Now, some of you are students in UTHM. You probably have 3 years. Okay, I just want to check with you. Can you still hear me? Because it seems like my camera is frozen. Can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, great. Thank you. So maybe I'll just turn off my video first. All right, so the aiming for journals that get cited quickly is very important for existing students within the university. I think some of you are postgraduate students who have probably 2-3 years in the university, and you have to publish your paper before you graduate. Now imagine if you're able to get your citations before you graduate. That would definitely help you if you are going to continue on a career in research. Right? So one metric that is found on Journal Citation Reports, JCR, is called the Immediacy Index. This allows you to find journals that have the potential to give you your first citation within the first year of publication. So that means if, let's say, you are able to publish your paper into this journal early 2023, okay, there's a potential for you to get at least one citation before the end of year 2023. Okay, so later on, I'll explain more about this metric. The last strategy is on identifying journals that get cited for a long time. This is especially important for established researchers, researchers who are teaching. Okay, citation counts is always part of your performance measurement, right? The more highly cited you are, the better. Okay, so to be able to identify journals that give you a better potential to get citations for a longer time can help you do that. So the metric that I'm talking about on JCR is called the Cited Half-Life, and this is measured in terms of number of years. So the longer number of years, the better. But of course, this depends very much on the specialization as well. So there are certain specializations that are moving very, very fast. And when that happens, though the half-life tends to be shorter. But certain specializations, you would have the potential to continue to get the citations for maybe up to 10 years. Okay. So these are the strategies that I'm sharing with you today. I hope these are useful. I will explain more about each of these indicators when I go into the journal citation reports walkthrough. Okay. In the meantime, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put those questions into the chat box and I can address them as I go along. Or we can always save it for the Q&A later on at the end of the session. Okay. So let's go into an overview of the journal citation reports and what it includes. Okay. So the journal citation reports, as I mentioned earlier on, is a report that is published on an annual basis, and it gives researchers the confidence to select journals to publish in. Okay, because the statistics that we include on the journal citation reports are publisher neutral. And why is it important to be publisher neutral? Because we don't want any conflict of interest. So when it comes to selecting journals to be indexed in the Web of Science, we only, our editorial team do not sit in any editorial boards for any journals. They are also not sitting on any committee in any university. They are our full-time staff who are experts in their own respective fields. And they will be the ones who are selecting based on the quality criteria and the impact criteria that we have on the Web of Science. So when it comes to selectivity, you will be assured that only the most influential and the best quality journals will be indexed in the Web of Science. besides that, it is not the end of the story once a journal gets indexed in the Web of Science or the journal citation reports. We have continuous quality control in place. We will always check to make sure that there is no excessive self-citation from the journal or any citation stacking. This is very important because if there's excessive self-citation or citation stacking, the journal has a potential to be delisted from journal citation reports or the Web of Science, right? So some of you might be asking me, what is excessive? So if the journal says has about more than 20 to 25% self-citations, that is considered fairly excessive already. Okay? So this 20-25% has already been taken into consideration. For example, certain research has to be cited as a continuation. Yeah, but it should not go past 20 to 25%. Okay. What is citation stacking? Citation stacking refers to the process of publishers who have many journals, and perhaps they have journals across maybe multiple journals in one discipline. So when these journals help to cite each other, that is what we call citation stacking. That means journals within the same publisher citing each other. And if we do see evidence of that, we will send a warning to the journals in terms of an editorial expression of concern. And if they do not correct these behaviors, then they could be delisted. Then the next thing is transparency. The journal citation reports includes multiple metrics for journal statistics. And within these, we will clearly list down the definitions of each of these metrics, as well as how each of these indicators have been calculated. So say, for example, the journal impact factor. Within the journal citation reports, you will be able to see very clearly the formula used for calculating the journal impact factor, as well as what comprises of the denominator as well as the numerator of that equation. So it is very clear what are the articles and citations that have contributed to that journal's journal impact factor. Okay. So in this latest release of JCR, we have a total of 21,430 journals altogether, and this covers these various subject categories. So we have science journals, almost 12,800 of them, social science journals, about 6,000 plus, arts and humanities, we have about 3,000, and there are close to 200 titles that have received their journal impact factor for the first time this year. Yeah. Now, many researchers have always been asking, especially asking research officers as well as the librarians, oh, I'm in arts and humanities, or I'm doing linguistics. I can't really find journals that are in this particular field. Okay. Later on, when you're looking at journal citation reports, you will be able to easily retrieve a list of journals specifically in linguistics. Okay, so I'll be teaching you how you can retrieve those lists of journal titles that you can refer to for submitting your manuscript if you're in linguistics. Just an example. Okay. Okay, so if you have previously used journal citation reports before 2021, okay, you would have realized that we only covered the SCIE and the SSCI journals. But from last year, in the 2021 release, we expanded this to cover more journals. So we have included the AHCI and the ESCI journals into the JCR. But that does not mean that every single journal has a journal impact factor. So as for this year alone, only the SCIE and the SSCI journals have a journal impact factor. Okay. But the good news is from next year onwards, so from the 2023 release, this is a very big news, very, very huge news, so pay attention. From next year onwards, 2023, we are going to issue a journal impact factor to every single journal on the journal citation reports, which means to say, even the AHCI journals and the ESCI journals will get a journal impact factor. Okay. However, with more news to come, these journal impact factors will then have to be taken into context depending on which index the journal falls under. Okay, because we hear from the community, we hear from the research community that it is unfair to not have a journal impact factor for every single journal. So there you have it. We are going to release a journal impact factor for each and every journal on the journal citation reports, starting next year in 2023. Okay, so the next report will come out in June 2023. So watch out for that. Okay, so for this year, currently, the AHCI and the ESCI journals will still not be awarded a journal impact factor purely because of the current criteria that we have when issuing a journal impact factor. Okay. But for the AHCI and the ESCI journals, this year and last year, they managed to get additional indicators from JCR. So on JCR alone, there are these additional indicators that will cater for evaluating them. Okay, so things like journal citation indicator, percentage of open access score, immediacy index, eigenfactor score, normalized eigenfactor score, article influence score, citing half-life, and cited half-life. Now that's a lot of indicators to look at. However, for today, I'm going to just emphasize on a few. So number one, the journal citation indicator is a brand new indicator that we launched last year in 2021. In the next few slides, I will explain more about how this is calculated. But this indicator is used in collaboration with, in complement with journal impact factor to identify journals that are impactful. Okay, so the JCI, if it is above 1, it means that the journal is performing above global average in terms of its citation performance. Okay, if the JCI is below 1, it means that the journal is performing below global average in terms of citation performance in its specialization. Now, percentage of open access goal, this indicator, this would show you, tell you whether the journal is full open access or only some content is open access. Right? Immediacy index, earlier on I mentioned, which is part of the strategies. The immediacy index is measured in terms of a ratio. Okay, so if you can see here as an example, the immediacy index is 1.015. So how is this 1.015 calculated? So we take the 1 year citations of the journal, divide by the 1 year total number of articles and reviews. So the citations divided by the number of documents. If you have, say, for example, 10 articles and reviews published in a year, then you have 10 citations across in total. So 10 divided by 10 would mean 1. So in terms of ratio, there's potentially 1 citation per article, right? If this number falls below 1, it will mean that perhaps this journal only had 5 citations for the 10 articles that they had published. So there's not enough citations to go across all 10 articles. So this reduces the chances of getting that first citation in that first year of publication. So any number above 1 is always a good number to see if you want to be able to get 1 citation in the first year of publication. So the higher the number, the better. Now for eigenfactor score and normalized eigenfactor score, I will not go through too much about this, but this is a measurement of the influence of the journal, meaning which other journals have actually cited this one that you are looking at. So has it been cited by those that have higher journal impact factor, Have they been cited more by quartile 1 journals? So there's a way to calculate this. Okay. Then article influence score is similar concept, but this is specific to the article itself. Okay. Then there's a citing half-life and cited half-life. So citing half-life would show you how the citation age of those references used by this journal. Okay, so that means what is the oldest content that they would probably be citing. Okay, whereas for the cited half-life, it will mean how many years. So that means the age of the article that is being cited within that journal. So for cited half-life here, in terms of 10, it means that there's a potential to receive citations up to 10 years. So that means articles that are in this journal up to 10 years old, they are still receiving citations up to today. Okay. So I hope that this quick explanation is clear enough for those on the call. Otherwise, on the platform, there is always a more detailed explanation of each of these indicators. There's another indicator here that I wanted to explain, which is the percentage of articles in citable items. The journal impact factor is calculated based on articles and reviews only. So that means we only take into consideration articles plus reviews. So editorial letters and so on, they will not be considered. So percentage of articles in citable items will give you a good idea of what is the type of document type that the journal is accepting. So in this case, out of all the citable items, 99% of it is articles, which means to say, if you are publishing a review, do you think this journal is suitable for you? Probably not, because it's accepting less than 1% of reviews. Okay, so this particular indicator can be quite useful. Okay. Now, to explain a little bit more about the journal citation indicator and what this is, it is a way to assess the journal's performance with some additional context. The journal impact factor, okay, no doubt a good and established indicator, has its limitations, meaning it is purely a ratio because the journal impact factor is calculated by citations divided by citable items. If, for example, it doesn't take into consideration the specialization. So it is not correct to say a journal that has journal impact factor of 200 is a very good journal. Neither is it correct to say a journal that has a journal impact factor of 4 is a very bad journal, because you need to take into consideration the specialization it is in. It could come from a specialization where the citations tend to be lower, and where that happens, the journal impact factor usually tends to be slightly lower as well. So do use journal impact factor with some context. So don't use journal impact factor alone as a way to evaluate a journal's performance. The journal citation indicator, on the other hand, allows you to conduct some kind of comparison across disciplines. Why is that so? It's because this indicator is a journal level, article level normalized metric. Okay, normalized in what sense? It has taken into consideration the specialization, the document type, and the publication year. Okay, so it uses this particular indicator here, which is called the CNCI, Category Normalized Citation Impact, that we have on Insights, which is our other tool. So every single article will have a CNCI, and we will average this out across 3 years for the content published in each journal. The average would then be the journal citation indicator. So if the JCI is above 1, it means that it is performing better in its category compared to its peers. If it's below 1, it means that it's performing below average compared to its peers. Okay. Okay, now there's a question here from Hakim. If a journal claimed that their recent impact factor is 0.094 and rank Q1 in Journal Citation Indicator, but when I check, it is Q4 by Journal Impact Factor. Some may confused about JCI and Journal Impact Factor. Please advise. Okay, number one, this particular, you will need to give me the journal's name, okay, to verify whether it is true. But most of the time when I'm looking at this, a JCI of 0.094 is a very, very, very weak JCI. So it's usually not possible that it's ranked Q1 in terms of JCI. Okay, so it'll be good to get that journal's name to verify this. But the use of JCI and JIF is very different. Okay, so JCI, as I mentioned, most of the Q1 journals, or almost all Q1 journals, will have to have at least above 1 JCI. Most of the time. Okay, if you do a quick check on JCR today, most of them would be all above 1. None of them would be 0.0 something. Okay, so do verify that. But for Journal Impact Factor, as I mentioned, you have to take into consideration the subject category. Okay, so we can take this offline as a separate case if you do come across a journal that is ranked Q4 at 0.094, but considered Q1 in JCI. Yeah, because usually if it's ranked Q1 in JCI, you are putting it together with the other Q1 journals in terms of impact factor as well. So by right, it should have over 1 JCI. Okay, so let's take that offline, Hakim. Okay, so another question from Daniel. Can you explain the differences between citation from Web of Science, Scopus, and Google Scholar with impact factor? Okay, so one thing to clarify, Web of Science, Scopus, and Google, 3 separate companies. Okay, so we are all different database providers. There might be some overlap in terms of the coverage. Google Scholar tends to index everything under the sun, and we're not really clear on their indexing criteria. Okay, Scopus also has their own evaluation criteria, and they do index some of the content that we also index. Okay, but the reason why the quartiles can be different is because the way that Scopus and Web of Science categorize journals can be different. So certain journals in certain category may not be the same. So with that said, the number of journals in each category can also be different. Therefore, the quartiles can be different. Okay, so the citations that you are looking at on JCR or even on Web of Science are purely citations that come from other Web of Science documents. Okay, so whereas for Scopus, it's the same thing. Google is the same thing. They are just talking about citations from those same content, content they themselves have indexed. Okay, so that's the difference. Adele, you have a question. Can the journal be indexed in JCR without the need to be indexed in Scopus? And what are the criteria to be indexed in JCR? So as I mentioned, Scopus is a different company from us. For journal citation reports, the data comes from Web of Science. So the Web of Science selection criteria I shared a couple of slides ago is based on 24 quality criteria and 4 impact criteria. If the journal meets our 24 quality criteria, they will be indexed in the Emerging Sources Citation Index, and therefore will also be indexed in journal citation reports. Okay, so the criteria used for JCR is the same exact ones used for Web of Science because they are related. Okay, but what's covered in Scopus and what's covered in Web of Science could be different. Okay. All right, so for the next few slides, these are just some screen captures of what you can do on the platform itself, which I will go through in more detail in my walkthrough. And for this one, which is the open access strategy, this could be quite useful for both the library as well as the organization to identify journals where you potentially have to pay a little bit more article processing charges. Okay. We also have citation distribution charts available that would give you an idea of which are the kind of document types that get more citations within that journal. And if you are confused as to which journal to choose, we also have this capability for you to compare journals side by side based on the metrics on JCR. So you are able to select a few different journals, put them side by side together to make some comparison. The browsing capabilities, we also have multiple browsing capabilities on JCR. So currently you can browse by publisher, like research category, and by country. Okay. Okay. And finally, if you do want to integrate some of these journal level data, journal metrics into your own internal UTHM systems, for example, there is a journals API available, and it is a subscription-based API. So do reach out if you're keen to get this to be integrated to your systems. Okay. So now let me just go into the walkthrough so that I can take you through the system before we go into questions. Okay. Now, to access journal citation reports, you have to access this via the library website. So go through the library website. If you're off campus, sign in to the off-campus access and then search for journal citation reports to find this database. Once you're on journal citation reports, a few things you can do. So say, for example, you want to verify whether a journal is indexed in journal citation reports or the Web of Science. You can just purely put in the journal's name. So let's see, hydrogen energy. Oops, sorry, it signed me out. Hang on. Okay, so just type in the journal's name, hydrogen energy. So as you type, the system will start to search. So if there's a result, it will say there's one journal, International Journal of Hydrogen Energy, then this is the ISSN. So if you want to go straight to the journal profile page of this journal, just click on this journal name. And you would see the details about this particular journal. Okay. On the journal's profile page, you will be able to see which subject category it falls under. So the journals on Web of Science can be indexed in multiple subject categories. So that's why this journal, International Journal of Hydrogen Energy, is in multiple categories: electrochemistry, chemistry, physical, energy, and fuels. Okay. At the back, you see SCIE. It will mean that this journal is indexed in the SCIE index of the Web of Science core collection, and it definitely has a journal impact factor. So when you're scrolling down, besides looking at the publisher name, address, and the publication frequency, this would help you to be able to compare against the actual journal's website when you're submitting your article. In terms of the journal performance, we have the journal impact factor information here. There's a definition of what the journal impact factor is. And if you want to learn more, there's always a link out to details. I mentioned about transparency of the data on the journal impact factor calculation. You can click here, view calculation. It will show you the formula of how we calculate the journal impact factor, as well as how we include the citation counts and how we came up with 7.139. Okay. So this means that there are a total of 5,815 citable items for this journal in the calculation. And that's where you see here 5815. So on the right-hand side here, these are the contributing citable items to the calculation of the journal impact factor. As a researcher, this helps you to identify some important papers within the journal that you could be referring to. If you had access to the Web of Science, you can then click through to view this record on Web of Science and see the abstract. Okay, so let me just try again. Okay, so this is the record that we were looking at from JCR. When you link through to Web of Science, it will show you the abstract of this document and also some additional details like the author details and so on. Okay. If you're keen to explore Web of Science, do let us know or do reach out to the library, and we can always explore a trial or further discussions to see whether we can get a subscription in place for UTHM. Okay. Okay, here in this chart, you will then be able to see its 5-year journal impact factor. Is it increasing, decreasing, or stable? When you scroll further down, you would see the journal citation indicator. So this is at 0.95, okay, slightly below 1. Okay. But then again, just take note, this is a fairly new indicator. So from last year onwards, a lot of journals are starting to monitor their JCI. You would start to see more improvements in this. And this is our effort to make sure that the journals don't slack in terms of focusing their efforts on a few highly cited papers, but rather the whole portfolio of articles within their journals should be well cited. Okay. If you scroll down further, you have the citation distribution chart that I explained earlier on the screen capture on the slides, as well as the open access donut. And you would also see the quartile information right here. So the rank is in terms of journal impact factor. You have rank by JIF, journal impact factor. So this is the quartile that is always referred to in by Myra currently. So MOHI, Myra, all the evaluation bodies within Malaysia, they are all currently using the JIF quartile as a form of measurement and recognition. Okay, so when we talk about quartiles in this context, it's always JIF quartile. Okay, the reason why I'm explaining this is because with the release of the JCI, Journal Citation Indicator, we also have a rank for JCI. So you can see here for chemistry, we have this journal is in Q2 based on JCI quartile. Okay, there's a difference between these two, if you can see. So let me just go up. Okay, so let's look at this one. So you see here for journal impact factor, for chemistry physical, there's a total of 163 journals. This journal is ranked number 42, and therefore it is a Q2 journal. So the quartile here is divided equally in terms of 25% each. So the top 25% will be your Q1, followed by Q2, Q3, and Q4. Okay, so this one being 42, so it falls under Q2. Okay, so this is 163. So there are 163 journals in SCIE, Chemistry, Physical. Whereas for the journal citation indicator, you see that there's a higher number of journals. There's 172. Okay, so that means there's 9 more journals. So there are 9 journals that are currently that do not have a journal impact factor. Therefore, when you're looking at this journal becomes a rank number 45. Okay. Now, scrolling further down, you will see things like the cited half-life, citing half-life. So the cited half-life for this journal is 4.8 years. Okay. And citing half-life is 5.5 years. So if in the event, for example, if you got rejected by this journal, so let's say you submitted your manuscript to this journal, but you got rejected, sometimes the journal would give you suggestions or recommendations for other journals, but sometimes they don't. Most of the time they don't. When they don't, you can always refer to this particular chart and look at the sources. Okay, so take a look at the citing half-life. And you can look at the sources here. So there are 737 sources. You can click here. So this journal has cited these other journals. Okay, so it means that they are kind of related. So they might be publishing similar content. The scope might be similar. So you might want to explore submitting your manuscript to any one of these journals. Okay. So you can use either one, cited half-life data or citing half-life data and sources to see additional options to publish in. Then you have the content source data. So this is where we talk about the percentage of articles in the journal. So you can see here there's articles and reviews. So combined is 3,312. So in terms of percentage, there's 98% for articles. Okay. The contributions by organizations and country will give you a glimpse of the regionality. What do you call that? Yeah. So the region it is focused on. Okay. So is it more US centric, UK centric, international, regional? This could be revealed by the contributions by the country or region. Okay. Now the other additional metrics here you can read at your own time. So you can always click and learn more. Okay. And the immediacy index. So the immediacy index is based off a formula as well. So it's based on citations from 2021 divided by the items in 2021. Okay. So this is the journal profile page. Every journal in the journal citation reports will have a journal profile page that you can refer to like this. So let me just go back to the home page. Okay, so I've shown you how you can search for the journal. You can also search by ISSN, you can search by a research category, publisher, or even a country. So you can use this to search that. Keyword searching will not be possible. So journal citation reports does not behave like the Web of Science. So the journal citation reports, when you're searching, it purely looks at the term, whether it appears in journal name, in category, or publisher or country. Okay. Now, the other way that you can match your name, your manuscript is if you already have a manuscript in place, you've already written a manuscript, you can actually put in, use this tool. So match my manuscript. So let's click here. It opens up a separate page called the master journal list. You might need to do a creation of a free account here, but once you've logged in, you can start using this tool. Okay, so you can just enter the title of your article and the abstract. Okay, because I'm entering rubbish, so later on the recommendations might be rubbish as well, but you can try this for your other articles, yeah? And then you can click Find Journal. So it will come back with some recommendations. So there's a recommendation here for these 31 journals. So Applied Sciences Basel, you can view the profile page. Okay, and then link to the publisher's website. So some of the information here, sometimes if they've actually revealed the article processing charges, we might include some general information here as well. But the data here is purely dependent on the data provided to us by the journal. Okay. So this is the tool that I am recommending you to use. So let's start to browse the journals. Okay. So let's say you are in a specific subject category. Okay. You can start by browsing categories first. Okay. So we have some broad categories, some groupings here. So if you are in the arts and humanities, so you can click on arts and humanities. Then there are all these let me just come back here. Sorry. Okay. So there's all these 8 different subject categories. So if you are, say, humanities, multidisciplinary, or cultural studies, then you can click on each one. So let's look at cultural studies. So we have cultural studies here under AHCI. So there's also cultural studies under SSCI and cultural studies under ESCI. So depending on whether you need something that has a journal impact factor. So if you need a journal that has a journal impact factor, then refer to this one, which is the ones in SSCI, and you click on this 43. Okay. So by clicking on this 43, this would be those 43 journals in cultural studies that you can refer to. Okay. This list has all these different indicators in place. You can customize this. So in order to customize, just register for your own ID and password. Then you can customize the metrics that you want to see. Once you have customized this, you can save this under custom indicators. Okay. Then if you want to sort this by journal impact factor, we'll just sort by that particular field. And you see, like I mentioned earlier on, most of those Q1 journals will have at least 1 or above in terms of JCI. Okay, it will usually not be 0.0 something. Okay. Now, okay. So this is an example for the cultural studies, social sciences. If you want to choose a separate category, say in engineering, we can go to categories. And you can see computer science, for example. Then you have all these different 14 categories. So say, for example, I'm in software engineering, and click computer science, software engineering. Pardon the speed. Okay, so then we have the 110 that are in SCIE and 23. So if you only want those that have a journal impact factor, then you click 110. Okay, and this would be the journal list. If you want all the journals that are under computer science and software engineering, all you need to do is just remove this filter here. So just click X to remove it. And then you have all the 133. Okay. you can actually export this list. So you can click download into CSV or Excel. And this would be how you can keep the list of journal names to refer to. One thing to take note of is there's a export limit. So if you have a list that is above 600, only the first 600 will be exported. So if you want to export anything, make sure that you filter this down to 600 or less. Okay. Okay. You can also browse by publisher, by countries. Okay, so if you go to countries, okay, then you can choose the country that you want to look at. So perhaps we look at Malaysia. Oops. Okay, there are 81. So you can click on 81. And there it will list down the 81 journals from Malaysia. Pardon the speed for the database. It looks like there's something happening in the background that they're doing. So that's why there's a speed compromise. Okay. Yeah, so this is the 81 journals from Malaysia that you can refer to. Okay. So how would you utilize the JCI? Say, for example, here, for a specific category. So let's go back to the categories again. Okay, let me look at chemistry and analytical chemistry. And look at 7. Okay. So one useful way of using both the JIF and the JCI is that, say, for example, here you see it's all under chemistry, right? If you sort this by JIF, you have all your quartile 1 journals at the top. But out of all these quartile 1 journals, which are the ones that is giving you more impact in terms of JCI? So you can see here, even though this particular journal is a higher journal impact factor compared to this one, okay, the JCI is higher for the third journal. Okay, so this particular journal is more impactful in terms of its citation performance. So this is how you would start to use both the JIF, quartile, and the JCI. Okay, so that's about it. If you have any if you want to compare the journals, just select 1, 2, or 3, and then click on compare. Okay, you can compare up to 4 journals. You can also add them to your favorites list so that you can always refer to your favorites list. And if you require more support, there is always a help resource center here with the question mark. So you can click on that, and there will be product updates, guided tours, and contact us for help. One important thing I wanted to share with you was this help guide. So do click on this help guide to find the journals that have been delisted. So you can click on help guide. Then there is a type editorial expression of concern. So this 2021 summary is here. So these journals have been issued an editorial expression of concern. And for titles that have been suppressed, then this would be the 3 that have been suppressed and also the reason. Okay. If you want to access the previous year's suppression list, there is one link here that you can link out to. Okay. And that's it. So we do have a question on the chat. So let me look at this. So Hakeem, is the established authors in JCR get easier to get the paper to be published? compared to author that just want to start publishing in recognized journals? I'm assuming your question is whether is it easier for an author that has already got experience publishing in JCR journals compared to those that are just starting out. So definitely those that have already published before already have an upper hand in terms of their experience. So they might already have an experience in publishing there, but at the end of the day, whether a journal accepts your paper or not, it's not purely about your existing experience. It is about the research that you are publishing, that you want to publish. Is it something that is novel? Is it something that would help plug some kind of technology gap? That is the most important part. So I would not think about it as an experience, but I would say think about what can you do to make an impactful research, an impactful, novel, new kind of research. Okay. And can you explain this Journal of Medical Engineering and Technology? Is it still in JCR or not? How to recognize journal which is not indexed anymore in JCR? Okay, so one thing to note is that for JCR, the journal citation reports, it includes journals that were previously indexed before. Okay, but let's take a look at this journal that you were looking at. So let's search for this journal name. Okay, Journal of Medical Engineering and Technology. Okay, so this is the journal. Let's click through to see. So you can see here the last JCR year was 2001. Okay, so which means to say this journal is no longer indexed in JCR. Okay, because the last JCR year is 2001. Now, the next thing that you might want to then check is whether this journal is still indexed in Web of Science. So what you can do is go to Product, Master Journal List, and then you type that same name. So Journal of Medical Engineering and Journal of Medical Engineering and Technology. Okay, so this journal is indexed only in the Biosys previews, which is not part of the Web of Science core collection. So this journal is currently not indexed in Web of Science core collection. Okay, core collection means SCIE, SSCI, AHCI, ESCI. This journal is not in any of these. So it is not considered indexed in Web of Science. Okay. So I hope that answers your question, Rauda.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If you want to unmute yourself to ask, that's also possible. So feel free to jump in.
Hi, I'm Stu.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Madan here. I'm a postgrad student.
Yes.
Okay, for my study, okay, when I'm planning to do an introduction about my, for my journal, so to give more impact or to find a trend of the research. So I'm planning to do the bibliometric analysis for particular scope of my research. So is it possible is JCR able to do it? Because I believe that education don't have the access to Web of Science. So is there any method that I can see, like for example, if I key in renewable energy, so like past 5 years, what's the trend and how that the bibliometric analysis done? So you can see the trend. So that's my intention. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm afraid for journal citation reports, you won't be able to do that kind of bibliometric analysis. You will be able to do that using only Web of Science or the Insights benchmarking and analytics. So so you definitely have to have subscription to either one. That's the bad news. The good news is that maybe for insights, benchmarking, and analytics, I can do a quick quickly show you. You are able to retrieve a lot of bibliometric data from here, where it includes things like SDG goals. Let me see, research area. So this database, insights, benchmarking, and analytics, gives you a comprehensive data set across the globe. So you can see international countries, so all different countries, all different institutions, how they are performing in a specific research area. The research area itself, we have new, let me see, sometimes it's under micro. So there's a renewable energy specialization or topic, research topic that we have. And for Malaysia itself, say for example, here I put in a filter for Malaysia. You are publishing about 122 papers between year 2016 to 2020. So this is the kind of data that you can retrieve from insights, which you can't get from JCR. So to answer your question, you will need insights and Web of Science to do that.
because I found that JCR didn't have like very overall report generating
specific to the journal.
Specified to one journal.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. But if you do need a data set specific for your for your paper or your research, and you do have some amount of grant available for the project, you might want to consider purchasing like a custom data set from us. So we do have a custom data set that we do sell on a project basis. So let's say you have this project you want to do, this is the custom search that we want, this is the data set that you want to purchase, and then for one price, you can just take that data set so that you can do some kind of evaluation. We also have that option available, just to let you know. Okay, any other questions from the audience? No? If not, then I guess I'll leave you with my email address. I'll put that into the chat box as well. So if you have any further questions after today, you can always reach out to me and I'll be able to get back to you as soon as I can. All right, so let me see if I can turn on my video. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have found today's session useful, and I look forward to meeting all of you in person someday soon. And thank you to the library for helping to organize today's session as well. So Rauda, thank you, and back to you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dju-Lyn. Thank you for this informative sharing webinar, and maybe next time we can invite her to come here physically. Okay, for the participant, please fill in the form that we have put in the chat box for the attendance. Okay, if you don't have any question, maybe after it, can we get the slide? Sure. All right. Okay. I will share then the slide at our website, our library website after this to all the participants. Okay, with that, I end this session, and I will thank you, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. I'll send the slides over later.
Thank you, Miss Yu.
Bye-bye.
Bye.